So, welcome back to Margot Bell Designs. Today we are working on a Christmas stocking. Christmas is just around the corner, so what better way to get started than making a stocking for everyone in the family, okay? We can initial our own stockings, and we've got a nice loop on the top so that they can hang over the fireplace or on the peg or somewhere, ready to go for Santa to arrive during the night. Right, so there's lots of different ways you can construct these. I'm just going to do quite a simple way that's quite quick and easy for those that are learning how to sew. But let's hop into it. The more sewing that you do, the more you're going to think about the construction techniques and what you actually do first. So today we've fused our embroidery and we've cut it out, and we're going to do our embroidery first, okay? You need to do that first on your stocking before you actually sew your stocking together. Let's hop into it. Another thing to think about is when you're actually going shopping for your Christmas prints, you need to work on a particular colour scheme that you're going to stick to, and then you can chop and change, like it's like with quilting. You can chop and change if you've got the same reds and same greens and same golds through 2 or 3 different prints. When you're cutting out your Christmas stocking, you need to be aware of which way your Christmas print is going. For instance, this one has a particular one-way print, so if we're using this for the top of our stocking, we'd need to position that so that our words are going up the right way once they're done. Obviously it's not big enough for this case, but we'd need to have this section here with the writing that way, because it actually folds over like that and our cuff comes down, so we need to have the writing up that way. So you need to think about it when you're cutting it out. This one that we've cut out, it doesn't matter because our words go both ways. Now with our toe section, you probably should stick to the correct grain line, but if you want to get the words Merry Christmas in the middle of your toe section, you can just pop it wherever you'd like, okay? It should stay on grain, but if you want to get your wording in the middle of your toe section. So you can see I've just managed to squeeze it in, and then on the other side I've got Merry Christmas right in the middle. This particular one has got both ways. So on your scrap bit of S or whatever letter you've cut out, what you can do is actually use those scraps that are already fused to practice your embroidery and get your stitch correct. Then down to everything in half. Position your letter in the middle of your stocking shape. Measure down from the top. It's about 10 centimetres. Okay, 5 centimetres this side, 5 centimetres that side. Make sure you got the right side of your fabric. You can do a stay stitch around it if you'd like. Now mine has got a little bit twisted, which just happens from the stitching. Right, we're going to overcome that and attach it on. I just need to trim off that tiny little bit of filing showing there. It's right to the edge. If you've got any loose frayed bits, you might want to trim them off or just tuck them in. Sometimes you need to wind it forward with your hands to get right into that corner. So we're starting on the outside corner. We spin it around, and then we get a nice neat edge on our applique. So down into the corner, spin it around. Just make sure it's all sitting flat before you go into that last corner. It's broken a thread, so I'm just going to back tack over that same space and keep going. If we do too much back tack, it shows up. Pins out, and we can just trim away any extra little flyaway frayed edges. Just watch you not cutting your fabric there. A tiny little one there. Zero for our width and back to 2.5 thereabouts for our length. Right. So they're separately because we've done the different stitching colours. Now we're just going to leave our toe section unstitched at the moment because we're going to change it back to the white, so that it's going to be stitched in white because the red thread does tend to show through on the white garment or stocking. Back tack to other side, 1 centimetre seam. Because you needn't worry about changing the stitching, you can just stitch it all in white. It's a Christmas stocking and it doesn't really matter too much. Down either side of our red, and now we're going to stitch in white and put our white cuff onto the top of our stocking. So over the top of where we back tack in our red, we're going to back tack in our white. And you just got to be careful when you're sewing around a curve that it's not stretching too much and holding it all in place. Okay. Just ease it around. Make sure you stick to your 1 centimetre seam. Then we can put our cuff onto our top edge. So on the top edge of the cuff at the widest part, you'll see we've got a thin part and then we've got a wider part. So on the wider part, we want to just fine double neaten that, and that will be our finished edge. So with your overlocking pointing in the same direction, we'll just go 1/2 centimetre and 1/2 centimetre. Very fine. Double neaten around the top edge. Could overlock it and do a 1 centimetre seam allowance if you wanted to. Overlocking has got to point in the right direction. This one's going up. So we're going to overlock in white all the way around our stocking before we put our cuff on. Now you should barely need to trim anything off here. You should just get a little bit of fine dust. So neaten off any threads on the inside of your garment. It should look as neat on the inside of your stocking as what it does on the outside. And then we're going to put our hand into the toe section and just turn it into the right way. Also known as bagging out. Pop your fingers in there and jump into the corners so you can feel that seam. You can get the edges of the foot and roll it in your fingers and then rub it over the side of your machine to get it to sit right to the edge of that seam. The edge of the table acts as a bit of a press without having to get up and go to your iron or your press. Work your way around the outside. Sometimes you have garments that are just the seams half tucked in like that and that you lose the shape of your boot or your stocking. So we need to just work it out. You can get in there with a pen or a chopstick. Is also good. Here's a chopstick. So you can push that in and around the curve. You see it moving inside there? So you get a nice edge around that curve. Just forces that seam out and flat. Okay? The same around this curve of our stocking. So hold it flat. Now this edge could pucker a little bit because it's around a curve, but if we just try and stretch the inside, that inside of our stocking should sit flat and nice, okay? And I want it to look as neat as possible, because then Santa will be very impressed and say, wow, what lovely stockings you have prepared for me. So with our cuff, what we're going to do is we'll put our boot in the right side, and we're going to put our boot inside here. And our cuff is going to be stitched onto the top. Now we're actually putting the right side of the fabric to the wrong side, matching our notches and our side seam and our notches, and we're going to stitch it together. And this is going to fold up and then down, and then we'll have our right side to our right side. And side seams. Our notches match. Side seams match. And always, with something like this, always measure all the way around and make sure that it all fits in together. It's like a sleeve going into an armhole. If your seam allowances aren't right, then it's not going to fit. If our cuff is not the right seam allowance, it won't fit into your stocking. So we're going to overlock with our boot side out. Always tuck any extra threads into that overlock. Neatens it off, best invention ever. If you don't have an overlocker, you can always use a zigzag stitch on your machine. Back to our straight machine. So pull our cuff up, we fold this cuff down. So yes, that's the wrong side, but we don't see it because the cuff comes over the top. So on the top of our cuff, on this side, we're just going to measure 12. So on this side, we're just going to stitch down in our seam, right in that gap here, just for about 1 centimetre or so, just to catch that down. Back tuck, straight through the seam, and back tuck, for like probably about 1.5 centimetres. And then on the other side, we can do the same, just through that seam. So with our 10 centimetres or so of ribbon, and we're going to fold it in half. I'm just going to stitch 1/2 centimetre seam allowance straight across, back tack and back tack, just to hold it in place. And then we're going to fold it over to reinforce it. A little bit higher than where our fold over point is, okay? So that we're catching all those raw edges inside. And then we have our hoop to hold it up on a peg or a line. Voila, one Christmas stocking ready to go. Just needs a press and then ready to hang up over the fireplace in anticipation for the big day.